dropped off pretty quickly. But nevertheless, I'll get started. I'm going to start sharing my screen. This conversation is going to be mostly around TA. As for those who don't know, I'm Uncle Eagle. I know it says Joel Garrison in the thing. That's my real name. I am currently in the process of writing a book all about certain things for new individuals. So we'll be completing that book, and it'll be for sale shortly. But I truly enjoy taking very complex problems, issues, and technologies and simplifying it in the easiest way I possibly can. Feel free to interrupt me at any point or time, ask questions, etc. But I really enjoy TA. One of the other things that I do a lot of is I am a long-term trader for the most part. I have been trading for a very long time, but I'm a relatively new day trader. I don't typically do predictions on day trading stocks and things like that. But I'm here to kind of teach you guys as new people how to be successful at doing this. And if you think that you're going to make a career out of 100% day trading, you're wrong. I'm going to tell you you're wrong. I'm going to continually tell you you're wrong. You have to figure out, once you start making money at day trading, how you're going to make money long term. And it's not going to be day trading. So one of the things I talk about on a regular basis is taking a day trading account that has only $1,000 in it, moving that over to a spread account that has a little bit more money, between $200 and $2,500. Your long-term account, which will have, an unlimited amount of funds, and then the most important thing is an IRA. I'm going to dig into that a little bit more in future trainings, but if you need anything in the meantime, always feel free to DM me. Hopefully you can see my screen right now. I'm going to kind of show you very quickly how I, Uncle Eagle, do support and resistance. Everybody does it a little different. But I'm going to show you how I do it so I can really understand how a stock works. So a couple of different things, and I'm starting out with a chart with nothing on it. Quite literally, it's just an empty TV chart, no indicators, no predictions, no nothing, because I'm really just trying to find the support and resistance. So what I'm looking for when I look at these charts is I'm looking for a pattern at all times. And the way I like to do this is I start furthest back in time, so basically the lower left of the screen, and I work my way up to the higher right of the screen, or the more current pricing for the most part. I'm only looking for resistance. And for those guys who don't know what resistance is pretty awesome because this is basically what it is. It's a line that I use that tells me what a stock is doing within a time frame. Now, the way I have this written in my book, which you guys will see at a later date, is think of it as being inside of a building. Think of a stock ticker being inside of a building. So support and resistance, as you watch a stock, is going to flow inside that building for the most part, right? So what I'm going to do is, a stock ticker usually does this, and it'll bounce because it hits the floor. And think of it as a bouncing ball. There you go. That's an amazing analogy, a bouncing ball. So it hits the roof, it hits the floor, it hits the roof, it hits the floor, and it bounces within this range. And then eventually what it's going to do is it's going to find a hole inside your floor or your ceiling, and it's going to jump, and then it's going to bounce off the floor, and then it's going to jump again, and then it's going to bounce off the floor, and it's going to jump again, and then it's actually going to fall through your floor, bounce off your floor, bounce off your ceiling, and then fall through. So what I'm doing over time, oh no, that totally removed itself. Oh no. Hold on guys, let me rewrite this for just a second. So I've got a stock that does this, breaks through to here, comes in, does that, breaks through, does this, and then breaks through. There we go. Now what I'm doing as I see this, right, is I'm over time finding where that support and that resistance is within that floor. So I need to draw my floors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my floor here because I can clearly see there's the floor and there's the floor. I can see a bunch of points here and here. So I'm going to draw a support zone here. And now I can see that my stock is falling in there. Then I'm going to draw another resistance here because I can see the stock likes to hit that. And then I can see stuff up here as well. So now I know that this is my ultimate resistance. The stock has never jumped above this resistance. And so again, it looks like a building. They look like floors of a building. So I've got floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, floor 4. And my ticker, or a bouncing ball, literally jumps between those over time. So now I know if it starts here, and as I look at this, right, I can say, okay, well, I just bounced off of here. Let me pull up my elliptical. Where is my favorite zone? There we go. So now I can say, okay, well, it just bounced off of here. So what I like to do is I want to put in a sell order here. I'm sorry, a buy order here. And then as the stock changes, so it bounced off here and it goes here. Let's say it broke through here, but then bounced here. Well, then I want to sell. When I bought here and I went long, I want to sell that here. Now I've just made money throughout this time zone, basically. So it's important to know where the support and the resistance is because it gives you a prediction of where it's going to bounce next. And that's all we're looking for, is we're always looking for predictions of where something's going to bounce. So if it bounced here, then there's a very high likelihood that it's going to bounce here as well. And if it bounces there, then it's a very high likelihood that it's going to bounce here, etc. And that's what I'm always looking at. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set my buys and my stop loss a little bit beyond those zones. So I might set my stop loss, arrow, here we go. I might set my stop loss right below here, probably right there. And then I might set my stop loss on the other side, or my take profit right above this zone. There we go. So now I'm always kind of taking profit and grabbing things, etc. Does that make sense? Do I still have people online? Yeah, I still got people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you kind of with SPX. And then for those who don't know what SPX is, that is the S&P 500 index in its entirety. So what I'm going to do, or how I do support and resistance, is I look at something from both a monthly, a weekly, a daily, and a 4-hour zone. That's how I do support and resistance. So what I'm going to do is on a monthly zone, I'm going to basically scroll out. Now notice I could go back in time all the way to the 70s, but I really don't care about that support and resistance, right? I really only care about more modern support and resistance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to find my obvious support and resistance. So if I look here, I can see with my dotted line of my arrow, I've got wicks and candles being basically touching this line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come grab my horizontal tool and I'm basically going to draw a line because I see a wick touch there and I see a candle touch there and I see touches here. And I'm going to color code this blue. And this basically tells me this is my monthly resistance. I have strong resistance right here on a monthly basis. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do the exact same thing where I basically look for my resistance. Where are all these little candles touching? And what's going to be really awesome about this is when my resistance here turns into a support here. And that's what I'm always looking for. I'm always looking for the most amazing opportunity for my resistance to turn into a support. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see this was the resistance, and then it bounced and actually bounced off of this support. That's how I know this is a strong line to draw. Now, Uncle Eagle, I use the candle bodies. There are people in the world who use candle wicks, and there are people in the world who use candle bodies. It does not matter as long as you stay consistent. Either use the bodies or use the wicks in your TA. Either way doesn't matter. One gives one story, one gives another. Now, the other thing I'm looking for here is I'm going to look for another kind of monthly resistance. So I'm going to come in here and I can find a resistance right about here. And I can see this, that I've got candle bodies on it, candle body here. I've got a couple of wick touches here, which is just strong. Again, I don't care about the wick touches, but the fact that I have wick touches is good. So I'm going to come in here, and then I see another one right about there. Again, strong candle body touches and a couple of wick touches. Those are always good. And I'll come over here and I'll grab another one right about there. Two candle bodies. I got a candle body here, and a wick touch there. And then I don't really see a resistance here yet, but we're in the more modern ways, right? So in a couple of months, I might have another resistance, but I don't have it quite yet. So that's how I draw monthly resistance. Now, one thing I will note here, because I usually only care about resistance, but I have this big gap here, is one thing I will note is if you look at this, you can see a support zone. So I might just go ahead and throw a blue one just for TA purposes here, because you can kind of see how this gets used as a support throughout that monthly zone. So I might just do that, but it's not really what I'm teaching today. And then I'll go from monthly to weekly, do the exact same thing, kind of zoom out over time. I really only care about more modern times. So let's start at like 2019 with this drop here. And I'm really looking for resistance throughout this. So here's a really great resistance zone, and I'll show you why, and it's kind of cool. And I'm going to make this a different color. I'm going to make this green. And the reason why this is really cool is you can see it come up, you can see it bounce. So you can see it bounce here as resistance, bounces support, but when it comes through here, because we had that big crash in 2018, we're using that same zone as a resistance zone and a support zone later on. And then we dropped below it and used it again over time. So we know that is a strong weekly resistance zone. So I'll just kind of increase things a little bit, look for another resistance zone. This one looks decent, not great, more of a back in the history. And you'll notice over here, I'm kind of using it as a support zone in more modern times in 2019. And then in 2018, we haven't really used it at all. But I'll go ahead and draw it out just because. Now I don't have the chat open. So if you guys need anything, feel free to unmute yourself or chat. So I kind of drew a resistance / support here because back in the old times, it was a really great support zone. It was a great support zone in resistance zone in 2018. It was a really great support zone in 2019, and then you can kind of see we used it a lot in more recent times. So I'll draw one right there, and then kind of come in here, and again, I'm just using my mouse cursor to see how many connect the dots I can make. So there's another one, zone touch, kind of used as support here. We had a zone touch, and then back in the past, we had a zone touch. And then we'll kind of scroll back in, get a little more modern times. I like that one because I got some touches here in 2019. We might use it in the future. Draw another one here. I don't like that one. We might use that one. No, I don't like that one either. Sometimes it just isn't obvious to you, and you've kind of got to draw it over time. But I'll also show you guys how to do that. So we're looking at this, and there we go. I'll just kind of leave it there. And as you can tell, and I hope you guys are noticing, this is not an exact science by any means or stretch of that word, right? I've got a wick touch there, etc. And then come in here and I'll finish it off with that. Now I've got my weekly, and now I'll come down to my daily and do the exact same thing. And I know this is a lot of lines, but if you color code it, I know I've got a strong monthlies, weeklies, and then we'll come back and we'll do dailies real quick. So dailies, I'll focus mostly on 2020 as I draw this. So we'll kind of scroll in, we'll come in here. And we'll do there, and I'll make that red. There. And you guys are real quiet, so hopefully you guys are learning or using me as a sleeping background or something. Somebody give me a hint that says you can actually hear me while I do this.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. Any questions, or it's making kind of sense as I go through this and measure this out?
It does.
Perfect. And again, it's not an exact science. You're really just looking for touches throughout. I care more about current price than I do past price, right? So here's a great example on this daily, right? So this is an amazing daily zone on more recent 2020, right? So you can see it's actually used as a really great resistance line. But here it's kind of ugly. So, but I don't care because that was kind of in the far past as opposed to the current. I care more about the current than I do about the past. It's just nice when it lines up in the past. So we'll use another line here. Okay, we are coming along. There we go. So now I have, and I could technically draw one more here, and I'll go ahead and do that just because, again, I've got a little bit of support there and some resistance there. Now, I know that's a lot of lines, but when you get into it and you kind of zoom in on certain pieces, it becomes a little bit easier to read over time. As you see where all of your supports and resistances are, right? And now I've zoomed into the 4 hour because I like to draw my zones in the 4 hour period of time. So usually what you're going to do is you're going to find out what the ATR is, the average, oh shoot, I always forget what the ATR stands for. It's the average true range of a price. And what that basically does is it tells you how much can this stock move over time. Oh, I don't want that. I want the ATR. There it is, average true range. So this has a really great little app to it over here in TradingView, and I'll come in here and I can see, okay, the latest ATR is 3163. So what I want to do is I want to build my zones around 3163 on the 4 hour. So I'm going to find my strongest zone that I care about. In this case, it's going to be a green zone. And I'm going to basically draw that zone out in this regard. So I'm basically going to draw a zone that looks very much like this. And then I'm going to do math that says within this zone, is this 3163 or at least close enough to it? So what I'll do is I'll pull open a calculator real quick, just so you guys can see how I do this. So I'll pull up in a calculator and I'll say 3394.91 plus 3163 is 3426. Okay, 3426. So really what the zone should be, 3426, is roughly about right here, which as you pull back in time actually does make a really amazing zone. And let me fix the pricing on this. So I'm gonna line everything up really nicely. So this will be 3394.91, and I'm basically just lining the box up with my line, and I'm gonna make this say what my calculator says, 54. So as I do that, I can see all of my prices are using the top of this zone almost as a support, right? Again, my stock is bouncing between this. So if I look at this, I can say, okay, it reached the top. Well, that's a bad example. But I can say here, okay, we reached the top of this and we bounce down. Oh, wrong tool. Reach the top of this and we bounce down. And we reach the top of it and we bounce down. And we reach the top of it and we bounce down for a little bit, but then eventually we broke out, and then we're using it as a new support zone where we're bouncing off of this zone. That's why we like zone trading so much in that regard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to build a new zone, again using this. Now you can decide whether you want to build this zone going up or whether you want to build this zone going down. Because I'm using this as a resistance, I'm going to build this zone going down because this is where my price is right now. So 3510.22 minus the 3163 minus 3163 is going to be 3478.59. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to build a zone right on top of that. That's going to basically be 3510.22, and this is going to be 3478.59. There we go. And there is my top zone. That's, again, lining up perfectly with my resistance. And I'll go ahead and color code this a little bit more green. So this will be my buy or my long zone, and this will be my short zone that says where it's going to go. And I can build more zones down here, which I do. You guys have seen my charts where I build zones. And sometimes your support and your resistance zone, again, we're at all-time highs, so it's hard. But I bet if I did the math, this is damn near close. So if I do 3328.67, and I do plus 3163, sorry, 68, yeah, 63. It's going to be, yeah, look at that. So from here, 3328, there's my math that I did, 3328.67 plus that is that zone, right? So over time it would change, but I literally can build this zone within that average price range, which is amazing because I know it's a fully accurate zone. And this will be 3361.88. So I can see this is a verified clear zone because I've got a true resistance and I've got a true resistance. So I know a stock's going to bounce around within this resistance here. Cool. And then what I can do is I can come in here and I can make a prediction as well. So I can kind of do this. And again, I'm going to do the math. So I can say, okay, 35, 35, 38, which was that daily zone, plus 3163, 63 is going to be 35.7. So I come in here and I say this is going to be 35, 35, 38. And this is going to be 3567.01, 35 67.01. There you go. Now I have a prediction for my next zone. And look, I did basic math, but no shit. Look at this. Look how fucking perfect that is. I mean, I didn't look at it. I literally just used ATRs with the resistance zone, and that fucking stock bounced right off of it. And obviously it came back into the zone and bounced there as well. So this is super powerful tools for your TA. I mean, look at that. Look how freaking perfect that is. And all I did was basic math. No fanciness, no design, basic math. So I can see that this is bouncing within this zone. So I have a strong belief that, and actually, sometimes you can go back to the daily, and sometimes that line just doesn't make sense. So you can see I kind of drew it there because of that candle and that candle. But honestly, this line's just going to fucking confuse me going forward. So I'll just remove it. And now I've got all this area between these zones right here. So SPX on the 4 hour says basically I'm going to climb up to this zone. And if I bounce off this zone, check this out. This is why I love zone trading. So I bounced off this zone. If I bounce off this zone, I'm going to short SPX until I get to this zone. And this will be my take profit, or at least my goal take profit. If I drop below it, I'm just going to keep making money, right? But if then I bounce off of this, I'm going to long it. And if I keep breaking through, I'm going to keep longing. And then I can either take a profit here, or I can keep longing, take a profit here, or it's going to bounce off, in which case I start shorting it, right? This is zone trading 101, because I'm literally bouncing off of zones constantly. And this is how I make profits, and I'm watching this entire time. Ooh, I've been talking without water. Questions?
Nobody can you explain one more how you do the math? So you take support and resistance levels.
Perfect. Yeah, so the resistance levels are going to be easy. You're just looking for those, right? Let's take a different stock real quick. Give me one off the top of your head. Go.
One, doesn't matter.
Okay. Let's do something not sexy. Let's do something... there we go. There's FedEx. Are we at all-time highs for FedEx? Because if so, I don't want to be interested. No? Okay. So let's say I'm gonna hyperspeed this, right? So I'm only gonna do the daily on this. Actually, I'll do the weekly. Okay, so I'm looking at the 2020 weekly, and I'm gonna find all my resistances real quick. So I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna say, okay, there's a resistance there. Whoops. So there's a resistance there, and I can tell because there's a wick, there's a candle body, and there's a candle body. I can probably bring this up just a little bit more. And again, color coding is important, so I'm going to do the weekly, and then I'll find my next one. Wow, FedEx is kind of fucked up. There's just no good ones. So I'm just going to find all my resistances that I care about. And we'll do another one here. We'll do another one here. And then we'll come into the daily. Oh, guys, Aunt Eagle brought me water. You guys say thank you, Aunt Eagle. And then I went into the daily, and I'm going to find all my resistance zones there. So that's a good resistance. And again, color coding. Color coding is important. And I'm kind of half-assing this, guys. So make sure you don't half-ass what you do. Half-assing's bad. That's how you lose money. There we go. That's a good one right there. Okay, so to answer your question, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a strong resistance zone I like. So in this particular case, this is the top of this resistance zone, right? And I'm going to go down from the top of this resistance zone. So I'm literally going to draw my zone, but then I got to do the math to figure out how big this zone should be. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ATR, the average true range. If you don't want to use TradingView, another really amazing resource is go to finviz.com. If you're not using finviz.com as your daily kind of check on top gainers, top losers, signal patterns, news, etc., you're doing this wrong. Make sure you're using FinViz. So I'm going to look up FDX, which is what I just did, and I'm going to kind of come down here and I'm going to look for the ATR for FedEx, FDX. Oh, you know what? I just did all that under FEX. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So fuck it. I'm going to use FEX just to prove to you guys I can do it on any ticker. So ATR is going to be 92 cents. So that's the movement on FEX. I don't know what FEX is what did I say? 92 cents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this zone. I'm going to make it 66.84, which is my resistance. So I'm going to do 66.84 because I'm drawing down, 66.84 minus 92 cents. Where's my calculator? Minus 92 cents is 65.92. So I'm going to make this price 65.92. Now, look at that. Look, I've got right there, almost right there. So I can adjust this zone a little bit if I wanted to, just to say, okay, I want the bottom of that candle because I've got a candle wick right there. And that is going to be my zone basically throughout this. So I know if I'm in this zone, I'm at the top right now. So if I'm at the zone, this is going to be my short zone. And then I can come down here to this resistance and do the same thing where I'm going to do 65.33. 65.33 minus 92 cents, 64.41. So I'll draw my zone right there. And I'll come in and do the math on it. 65.33. And this is going to be 64.40. And look at that. That zone literally matched this resistance right here, almost perfectly. So I'm actually just going to go ahead because ATR changes and my resistances won't too much. I'm just going to go ahead and make it that resistance. There we go. And now I've got a perfect zone right there. So now I've got two trading zones that I can play this stock in the middle of. And obviously I chose the wrong ticker, but it actually worked out perfectly because, again, this can apply to every single ticker you have no matter what. And now I know with this ticker, this random company I don't actually give a shit about, we entered, we kind of actually bounced around the top of this, right? Just a little bit, and then we broke out, hit the top, hit the bottom of this zone, actually broke out below the zone so I could draw more zones if I wanted to. Top of it, hit the bottom, and then jumped back in, and now I'm bouncing around inside this zone. And I could do this, I could do this, I could break out even further. Did that answer your question on the math, or do you need me to go over it one more time with math-wise?
No, makes perfect sense now.
Okay, perfect. And again, random ticker, so that worked out really well. Uncle, where was the ATR at in financials? So if you're looking at TV in TradingView, it's actually an indicator. So you're just going to come in here and you're going to type average true range, and it's built into the indicators inside TradingView. But TradingView is going to change based on time frames. So this is a 14-day, a 14 time frame ATR. So that's going to change a little bit. For stocks, I like using FinViz because they're a little bit more accurate. So you'll notice the 92 ATR here versus the 89 ATR there. I hope that helped, Mark. But I do enjoy using FinViz. The reason I used a TV is because FinViz doesn't do indexes or Forex. So Forex and indexes, you need to use the TV. And you can always compare and change those.
Valid, right, for option trading as well?
Yes, yeah, it's valid for anything.
Okay.
Yeah. So zone trading, support and resistance is going to be important no matter what the commodity is. So if it's Forex, whether it's buying stocks, buying options, etc. Because really what you're looking for is what is this ticker's price going to go to, right? Okay, what other questions you guys got? Wow, I got a lot of people online all of a sudden. Okay, so again, think of support and resistance for those who kind of joined late as a bouncing ball, right? So what you're doing is you're building the floors of a building. And I'm just going to kind of, and I know there some people already saw this drawing, but I hope that I helped kind of make sense of it. So I'm going to draw it a little bit again. So as I draw my lines, think of this as the floor and ceiling of a building, right? And then my stock ticker, think of it as a bouncing ball. So I'm going to bounce off the ceiling and I'm going to bounce off the floor. I'm going to bounce off the ceiling. And then occasionally I'm going to find a hidden elevator or escalator and I'm going to fall through that floor or that ceiling, right? So I'm going to bounce within that zone for quite a long time until I find that elevator or that ceiling, right? And this is literally what your stocks look like all day long, quite literally. And so what I do at that point is once I have a ticker, an empty ticker, I can draw my zones, or I'm sorry, my support, my resistance to match every single time over time. Oh, come on. There we go. There we go. To match that support and resistance. And then I can draw more support and resistance. And what this is doing is this is telling me that there is a high likelihood that a stock is going to bounce at certain times. Now, here's what's really cool is I'm going to take it one step further and I'm going to apply DOA, which is the thing we all pay for, on why DOA is important, right? So as I look at this, I'm seeing the floors of a building. This is floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, right? And I can see the bouncing ball jumping between the floors. I hope that helped. Now, one thing I'm going to show you is how to apply DOA to support and resistance. Let me delete all this nonsense that I just came up with. And I'm actually going to use this stock ticker. And I'm going to come down to the hourly time frame. I'm going to increase that up a little bit. And I'm going to actually turn on my DOA indicator. There we go. So what I can do here, and I do need a few more indicators. I have to have my moving average. I'm going to put 2 of those on because I have a 50-day moving average, which will be purple because I'm a DOA fan. And I have a 200-day moving average. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want moving average. I want exponential moving average. Moving average exponential. There we go. Or EMA. I'm going to make that purple, and I'm going to make this 25. I'm going to make this 200. I'm going to make it yellow. Okay. This is DOA 101, guys. Once I find my support and resistance, I can play the DOA signals very easily. And again, I'm using a totally freaking random stock that I've never seen before, and I don't think any of you guys have, right? But as I play this, you can kind of see, okay, so this fired green here, I'm in my zone, I'm above my zone, I'm nowhere near my resistance, right? So, and I'm above my 200, it fired green, I'm gonna buy. And I'm just gonna keep this buy until I fire red. And I'm below my 50 at that point, right? And then I'm just gonna basically do nothing until I fire green again, and then I'm gonna buy, and I'm gonna take a TP wherever before it hits my resistance. And that's my goal, as I'm finding my support and resistance. Now, you could go lower because we're day traders, and I could find more support and resistance in here. Oh God, this is a really terrible stock. I'm so sorry. So I could come in here and I could find more support and resistance. So I can see that that's a nice resistance zone. So I could draw my little resistance line. And I can see that's a support line. Almost it's using that 200 EMA as a support line. There we go. So now I have my lines, and now I can just play the DOA sniper over and over and over within this time frame, and then take my profits on the using the DOA sniper. And that's scalping 101 when we get down to that level. Again, I'm a long-term trader, so I tend to play at the higher time frames. And you can see that hit green, but I'm coming up on this resistance zone, so I have to be careful with that being green, because it's going to hit that resistance soon. So I want to use that resistance as a take profit zone before I go too far. I should probably get out of this ticker and use a big boy ticker. Here, I'll actually load up my chart. So I can actually show you some of my charts. So you can see, this is my SPX chart that I've done over time, where I have my zones and I can see where things travel. And you can see this stock actually travels within this zone. So I can see green fired here, and it's right here, right? And I'm below my zone. So if I went long on SPX, I could, and then as soon as it bounced off this, I take my profit, things like that. So that was a very long conversation. And keep in mind something that Austin literally just texted me, because you guys do tend to miss this on a regular basis, is support and resistance zones don't apply only at the higher time frames. They're important at the higher time frames, but they also apply on the lower time frames. So let me go to a 10-minute here with SPX, right? So you can see that I can build support and resistance zones at a lower time frame as well, so that I can truly day trade this stock. So I can actually see there's a zone here. And I'll just go to the top of those wicks. And there's a zone here, same thing, building support and resistance at the bottom of these wicks. And I'm actually using that line as my support and resistance. Now I can trade within my lower time frame zones as well. I hope that made sense. What else you guys got for me? I'm here for you. I'm the long-term guy.
You talk about stop losses in a long term.
Yeah, in what regard? So, I mean, I guess you mean, do you need stop losses in a long-term hold, like in your actual long-term stock? Yeah, yes and no. The truth of the matter is it all depends on you and what your losses are. Remember, long-term accounts, you're not trading, you're investing at that point, right? So you're really looking for the dividends. Intel is a great example of this, right? So what I would do in Intel is again, an amazing example of a stock that stop losses are important, but like really far out. So I'm going to go to the daily on this. I'm actually going to remove all my strategies just so you guys don't have anything in the way. There we go. So what I would do in the instance of Intel is I would use these monthly resistances, right? So let's say I bought Intel right after the crash, right? So let's say I got into it here roughly April timeframe as a long term, right? So what I would have done is I would have set this monthly and breaking this monthly as my buy limit. So I would have bought here, right? After I did my support and my resistance. And then what I would do is I would literally just let this run, but I would also set the resist or the support that's below that one as kind of as an alert, not necessarily a stop loss, but an alert, right? Because I'm thinking longer term. So I would want to know if Intel ever fell to 51. And sure enough, it did, right? And I probably would have sold it when it did that, because that's a huge loss I would have taken. Or you could set it as a stop loss. That really does depend. Stop losses aren't common, or take profits aren't common in a long-term stock, because really what you're looking for is the dividend of that stock and the hope the price increases. So example, Intel's dividend is 33 cents. So at every quarter. So if I owned, let's say I owned, 200 shares of Intel, I'm making 33 cents per quarter. I'm making $264 on Intel every quarter. And assume I will reinvest that, right? So divide that by, what's the current price? 51 something? Oh shit, the current price is really $48? Jesus, that's really low. I'm buying 5 new stocks of Intel every single month or every single year, right? So now instead of being 200, I'm at 205 times 33 times 4. Now I'm just kind of increasing over time. And that's really the point of long term. So to answer your question, it's a yes and no. I'd want to be alerted, and I might set a stop loss if I was really concerned, but general, no. And you're not really going to take a profit on something unless you need that money to buy a house, to buy a car, to have a baby, things like that. I'm not sure who asked the question, but I hope that answered it.
Yeah.
Who was that? Was that Misha? Okay, perfect. Okay, what else you guys have? I can shut this down if you guys don't have any more questions, but I'm really here to kind of help you guys out in those regards. Can you draw one more, Mark? Yeah, what do you want me to draw? Happily. You just got to give me the ticker. Hopefully I type it in right this time. Ah, why you keep asking about this damn stock? This is one of those Robinhood stocks that's at an all-time. Oh, it's not at an all-time high. Anyways,
no, I've been trying to practice with this one, so I'm trying to use your drawings to see how far off I am, because that's kind of how I work.
Okay, fair enough. So give me just a few moments. So I'm going to clear out everything. I have no drawings on this whatsoever. So first things first, I'm going to start at the monthly time frame. And this is not a very old stock. So just keep that in mind. When it's not an old stock, you're going to skip the monthly, but it's important to know you're skipping the monthly, Mark, because it's a new stock, right? So that in 6 months to a year, you can come back and make sure you build your monthly resistance, right? So I'm actually just going to skip straight to the weekly. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to build my weekly resistance. Again, I don't care about support, though when a support resistance turns into a support, it's wonderful, right? Now, this one's a little weird because it started higher and then went lower, And again, I always start over here and work my way up. So it's a little funky, but I'm going to go ahead and try anyways. It's not a big deal. So I found a resistance here that's beautiful. And again, I'm going to use green for weekly. So you can see that it touched here, and then kind of starts becoming that support level. That makes sense? And then I'm just gonna, again, I'm just using my mouse to highlight kind of where the line is over time. So I'm just basically looking back and forth until I see some clicks. Now I see some clicks here, 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 and here. So I'm gonna leave that here for now. I might move it later, but for right now it looks good. And again, just looking for those clicks. Now, here's something, don't use this yet because you can use it in the lower time frames, but keep an eye on things like this. See the wick here and all the wicks here? That's going to show up in your daily time frame. So you can mark that inside your daily. So that one doesn't line up very good. Oh, that one's beautiful. So that's a very clear resistance. Kind of moving up over time. And this is where you kind of just got to move your mouse, play where you got. And it's a relatively new stock, so it's not been solidified well, but I'll go ahead and draw a resistance there. I'm going to draw a resistance here because I like that it was a support there and then some resistance here. And then I'm going to leave all of this alone because that's just gross. And I'm going to ignore it until the price gets that high. And then I'll jump back down to the, so that was weekly, Mark. So I'm going to jump down to the daily. Same concept. I'm just going to find all of my resistance that I can possibly find. So it looks like I've got some beautiful resistance in here that covers lots of time frames. Red time frame there. Oh, I'm going to turn that red. So I got time frames there, bunch of time frames here, and then I'm using it as a resistance here as well. That actually looks like a really good red resistance, daily resistance. Just because I got all of this stuff here and it looks like I'm trying to reuse that zone. And over time, as you do this, you start seeing zones with your naked eye. But you've seen my charts. I always, always, always mark it out, even when I see it with my naked eye, because it's the lines in the chart that I trust. Ooh, Mark, look at that. We are at a strong resistance. So you've got a resistance there, resistance there, resistance there. And then in the past, well, it was the beginning, but in the past, it was used as a support level. So we're actually on that kind of zone right now. I'll try to clean that up a little. There we go, right there. So it actually looks like we're a little above it, which is perfect. So I'm going to come up here, try to find another one. That's beautiful. Two candles right in the same way. Come over here, same concept, support in the background, things like that. So I'm actually going to pause here just because the price is in a spot that I can kind of draw all what I need without having, actually I can probably get one more. Probably get one more in here somewhere. There it is. Beautiful. Wick right there, zones there, wick, etc. So I'll probably stop there and then we can always add to it over time. And then what I'm going to do, well, Control Z. Then what I can do is I drop down to my 4 hour, and this is where I draw my zones is in my 4 hour. So I need to go find the ATR for this, JMIA. Again, I use FinViz for that. Moves $1.31, which is nice. It's a nice one to have. I find my closest zones. So I'm going to use this green zone and I'm going to work my way up. So I'm just going to do 1561. What I say, $1.31. So I'm just going to do plus $1.31. So 1692. So I'm just going to draw here and I'm going to go to 1692. 92. So this will be 1692, and this was 1561. There we go. Oh, look at that. That's beauty. So I have two choices now, Mark. And here, I'll zoom out for you so you can kind of, because you want to kind of draw that out this way. So Mark, you have two choices now. And this is really up to you as a trader. So if I zoom in, you can see that this stock is actually holding my zone perfectly in a lot of instances, right? And then in the past, you can see it kind of breaks out of my zone a little bit, and it uses more of this red resistance. So now you as a trader need to decide, do you want to hold that ATR, or do you want to pull this up since it's not that far out of the range of movement? Do you want to pull this up so that you can gather a little bit more candles, right? Because now I'm using that as my range. So if I was trading this stock, which I am not, I would probably just use that resistance as that full zone, just because it is still technically, I mean, it's not that far out of the ATR. Does that make sense, Mark?
It does.
Perfect. So I'm just going to use basically an educated guess in that. Now I'm going to draw another zone here, but I'm going to go down this time. I'm going to go 2459. So I'm going to use...
and as you're drawing that, can I share with you what I was thinking to see if I'm just batshit crazy?
Yeah, always.
All right. So as I was listening to both you and Tiffany last week, I was really intrigued about the credit spreads. And so what I had been doing with T is I had been selling puts because they've been pretty much trading sideways until the earnings came out. And so what I was looking at for this one, because I don't mind owning these shares, I looked at the November 20, I think 16 and a half puts, and I think the premium was 2.25.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
And so what I was thinking about doing with this one was selling a couple of those puts and then taking those funds and then investing it at something else so I could lever it up. And then if I should happen to get caught out on that, then I didn't mind owning that stock at that price and then potentially just writing some covered calls on it.
Okay, let's work through that. I love that thought process. So let's work through that together. Give me just a few moments. Let me finish the zone.
Okay.
1.31, so 23.23, 23.23. Oh, Jesus, look how perfect that was. I did that, and that hit both of that resistance and that support. Oh, that is gorgeous. I love when zones work out that way. Now, because it's so close, again, I can either move my resistance line down a little bit or just make my square perfect. I'm a little bit anal retentive, ask my wife. So we can do that, and now it's all perfectly within that. Now, I see what you mean. So we're already above this zone, right? So do you want to sell with the lower zone, or do you want to buy with the higher zone?
I was thinking about selling with the lower zone because I was looking at a 16 strike. And like I said, it was at, in between 215 and 2.25.
Okay. So if I was going to do that, and again, I don't know the zone. This isn't going to be an official call out, but I'm with you in trying to find this. Got it?
Okay.
So let's minimize this a little bit. So we know JMIA is above that zone, which makes me a little nervous, but I see what you mean. So what I would do, because I drew that support and resistance, I know my weekly support, which is a strong support, is 1561. So I want to stay, if I'm going to put, right, I want to stay above that because I know it's going to bounce there, which is why you're choosing the 16. I like it. For what expiration were you talking about?
November 20. I'm sorry, November.
Yeah, 20th. That's the weekly, or that's the monthly, which is perfect. So you want to basically sell a credit spread on the 16 like this, which is $43. Beautiful. And then you know it's not going to go above 21, right? Oh, I did that backwards. Sorry. There you go. $71. That's a 71 credit. That's beautiful. I like that. So basically what you're saying is it's going to stay below the 21 and it's going to bounce throughout here, right?
Yes.
So you think it's going to do this and just stay here.
I do.
I like it. Nothing tells me otherwise. Wait, how much time frame was this? This was, when did I enter this? Entered the zone here roughly. So that was in the last 4 days. Ooh, I don't like that move in 4 days. Tell you what, let's draw one more zone using this going down. And I don't watch the stock. So if you do, you feel free to say, nah, I don't think you're right, Uncle. 131. So 2105 minus 131 is 1974. 1974, that's my ATR there. Oh, okay. I like that. I like that a lot. And I can see that it matches there, right? So let's go a little bit further in time because we want November 20th, right? So we'll do that, and we'll do this. Oh, I literally just exited my zone. Okay, I'm with you. I'm with you all the way. I like it.
Okay.
Now, it's not the premium you said, though. So I want to make sure we're on the same page. Hold on one second. Let me finish color coding because color coding is important, people. Always color code. So you think it's going to stay in between 21 and 16, which I agree with you wholeheartedly. So I'm basically selling the 16, buying the 15 for protection, and I'm selling the 21 and buying the 22 for protection. And honestly, you could probably increase that to be like that. So what's your premium? What are you showing?
Oh, no, that's about right. I was just giving you the first at the 16, which was in between the 215 and the 2.25. And yeah, so that's right.
Okay. Now, one thing I don't like, and this is okay, is the implied volatility of this stock. So the computers are telling me this stock has a $6 move by November 20th, an implied volatility. You see my screen?
I do. Yes, sir.
Again, that's the computers telling me that. But doing my own TA, I agree with what you're seeing and that it's bouncing within this zone, right? Because I can clearly see that we're getting overbought, we were oversold, and I'm coming in here. So I would be comfortable taking this by November 20th, which is here. I'd be comfortable taking it, but I would be careful just because, again, computers are telling me my implied volatility was $6. But you also saw me trade Zillow, right? Where I was like, well, fuck the computers. I know this stock very well. And I know this stock's not going to go below 90. So I have to leave it up a little bit to you as a trader to be able to determine that. That makes sense?
It does.
Cool. But I like that. $71 credit. Oh, why is it only a 31% pop? I'm doing something wrong. Hold on a second. Oh, it's because of the implied volatility. That's why. Because again, I'm not so like the computers basically say that I should pick this. Now I have a 65% pop and only a 34%, right? But I'm with you. You don't think it's going to happen? Go for it, buddy.
Okay.
I like the support and resistance. I like what you got. Okay, cool. Hope that helped.
It did. Thank you.
No problem. Anybody got anything else? It's 2:30. We were gonna take a small break and then come back at around, what is that, 5 p.m. my time, so Central Standard Time, and Austin will predict the future. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns before we break out? Let me add this to my little watch list. Okay, peeps, if nobody's got anything, Mark, you got anything else?
Nope, you've been absolutely wonderful as always. Thank you.
No problem, guys. We're here to help. Reach out if you need anything, and we will see you guys at 5 so Austin can predict the future.
Perfect.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.